welcome everybody along to this Planning Applications Committee of the 16th of July 2015. Could we note that the meeting may be recorded and subsequently made available for public listening purposes? And could I ask that all mobile phones are switched off or at least turned to silent, please? Gillian, can you confirm the President?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we have 15 members present today, so we are correct. We have apologies from Councillor Blake, Councillor Diggle, Councillor Ogilvie and Councillor Witt.
Councillor McGregor.
Thank you, Councillor.
Have we got any declarations of interest? Have you got something to say here, Gillian?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it was just to clarify, there have been a few inquiries from members relating to item 6, which is the erection of 2 dwelling houses and installation of oil tanks at vacant plot adjacent to Glen Cottage, Main Street. This is a new application and has to be treated on its own merits. Therefore, councillors who did sit at the LRB can determine this application. However, if any councillors do feel uncomfortable, then it's up to them to declare an interest. Thank you.
Ian?
Yes, I will declare an interest in item 6 and remove myself from consideration. I've offered opinion and advice to the applicant.
Tom?
Yeah, I'm happy to take that advice, but I'm certainly not happy about the fact that an application can go to officers, then go to an LRB, and then be resubmitted absolutely identical to the planning committee. And I think that's something for our ad hoc subcommittee on delegations to take a look at. I'm not very happy about the process that's gone through, but I'm quite happy to sit in at the meeting.
Yeah. Any other members? Any declarations at this? We confirm the minutes of the previous meeting. Gillian, could you outline the procedures to be followed?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, the Planning Applications Committee will consider each application in turn as detailed on the agenda. The case officer or other appointed officer will make a short presentation addressing the determinant issues accompanied by digital images. Any late information, amendments or corrections will be reported at this time. Members may ask questions of officers following the presentation on points of clarification. The Chairman has been provided with a list of eligible representatives who have registered to speak at this meeting within the period specified in Council policy. No other persons will be allowed to speak. The Chairman will individually invite those who have registered in advance to speak to make their presentation, after which they may be questioned by committee members. No questions may be asked of members. The order of eligible parties being heard will be as follows: third parties objecting to an application, third parties supporting an application, statutory consultees objecting to an application, elected members of Dumfries and Galloway Council who are not members of the Planning Applications Committee, and then applicants or their agents. Representatives have been placed in alphabetical order, and a copy of the public speaking list is available from the committee officer taking notes of our proceedings today. Presentations will be strictly limited to 3 minutes per person, except for national and major developments, which by their very nature are more complex, where the time limit will be 5 minutes. The Chairman of the committee will ask you to come to a conclusion if you take too long. Representatives are encouraged to use the time allocated to clarify any points they consider material and address the determining issues. Certain matters are not normally material planning considerations and will not be taken into account by the Council when deciding on a planning application. Representatives should not raise any new matters without explaining why they were not raised earlier with the case officer. Please do not repeat what is in the report, as members will have already read this report. After all the representations have been heard, the meeting is then in formal session and no members of the public may address the committee from the public gallery. The Planning Applications Committee will then proceed to determine the application. Thank you.
Thanks, Gillian. We go on to item 4 on the agenda, Littleton Dairy, Gatehouse of Fleet, application number 15/P/2/0087, and we've got Dean Clatworthy speaking and showing slides on this. Thanks, Dean.
Okay, thanks. If we could just take members to page 9 in the papers, just so you can see the context of the site in the wider area. What we have, the site obviously is identified, and then we have the loop of the A75 to the south, and then the nearest settlement being Gatehouse of Fleet. You can just see the annotation coming in on the sort of upper left-hand boundary of the map. Just to emphasise, the A75 is a much lower level, and from the A75 you cannot see up the slope and then towards the farm. It's in its own natural basin, which you'll see in the images. That's the application site in more detail. The outlined in red are the proposed buildings. There's a building second up from the bottom of the image. That's part of the application too. It's just that that's retrospective. That's already on site and it's been completed. What you have outlined in blue is the U27 public road running north-south. It comes to a dead end at the south. These details are the proposed junction amendments to the current situation. What you have in the hatched areas is an area of bunding on the right-hand side that will be topped with a fence, and an area of verge reinstatement on the left-hand side of the junction. I'll explain further those amendments as we go through the slides, but those are sought by the roads officer. These are further amendments to existing accesses. These are on the U27 minor road. Effectively, what the one on the right-hand side would be doing is narrowing a current access, implementing a gate so that only pedestrians and quad bikes can enter through that access, and a narrowing of the access on the left-hand side to make it a safer access. And there's one further access on the C4 road, which would be narrowed to enable more appropriate movements onto and off the public road. Just to go through the buildings, these are the proposed buildings. This is the largest of the 6. Finished in Yorkshire boarding with concrete lower walls and a fibre cement roof, and the long elevations would have opening curtain walls to allow ventilation. That's the building that would be beside it, exactly the same. And then a series of slightly smaller buildings diminishing in scale. And that's just an overall farm view from the east at the top, from the south at the bottom, so you see the gable ends of the buildings, and then from the west is the bottom view. So you'll see the existing buildings that aren't coloured in, so you see how these buildings would extend the farm complex. Now onto the images. This is a view from the minor road, the U27 from the south, looking across the landscape. You can see the 2 wind turbines that have previously been approved by this committee. They're in place now. Panning right, we're looking north along the minor road towards the existing farm complex. What you have, the darker building in the foreground, just next to the road, that's the building that's been erected already. And then panning further right, you can just about see the complex on the right-hand side of the road. 2 further buildings would be erected there, extending towards the viewer. That's just a closer view of the retrospective building. The building 3 would repeat that, and it'd be nearer to the viewer, extending forward from that gable end. This is a view of the existing farm complex from the north, a higher position in the field system. So we're panning across the eastern extent of the range.
and panning right, got the western extent, and you can see the two wind turbines. And that's just a general view across the farm from the C4 public road from the east. Just to take you through the actual details of the amended accesses, this is the existing access on the west side of the minor road. This will be narrowed and gated as advised by the roads officer. This is the existing access on the opposite side. This is the one that will be narrowed and gated with only pedestrian access, and also suitable for quad bikes, but it would prevent vehicular access. And this is just a view of the same two accesses as across the minor road within the farm complex. This is a situation that caused the roads officer, that has been causing the roads officer the most concern. This is the existing situation as you come west along the C4 public road. There's the concrete apron there on the left. There's no boundary or effective boundary between it and the junction between the U27 and the C4, which I've noted there. So vehicles can effectively do a diagonal across the junction and then onto the concrete apron. And it's the same in the opposite direction on the opposite side of the junction, because there is an access there into the complex that you can see in the distance. And this is a closer view. You can actually see the tyre tracks crossing the concrete apron and turning into the minor road. So the concrete apron, which is in the ownership of the farmers, effectively become part of the public road. And it was this that's raised concerns with the roads officer. So what the roads officer sought was a reformation of the private and road boundary on the left there, and a blocking off of that access on the right-hand side across the junction. And this is it partially implemented. The applicants got to work immediately. You can see the bund with the fence on it, on the forming that geometry of the junction there, and the reinstatement of the verge. It's obviously not grassed at the moment, but that's it in place. And that's an overview of it. These have actually been viewed by the roads officer and have confirmed that they're acceptable. And that's the main access into the farm complex from the C4. This one would be narrowed at the request of the roads officer. We've assessed the application, and it's considered it's compliant with the vision, spatial strategy, and subject and overarching policies of the LDP. It's recommended for approval subject to a single condition that obviously is now partially complied with, to make all the amendments to the existing accesses as requested by the roads officer, and for them to be maintained as such for the lifetime of development. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any points of clarification for Jean? Ian?
Thanks, Chairman. Just a general question in regards to road geometries. I think what you're saying, Dean, is that the original proposals were for wider junctions, and it just looks like that, certainly wider junctions, wider accesses. But by narrowing them, I think you're saying the roads officer saying that's a safer way to go ahead, and that's what's being proposed.
What the existing situation is an evolution of the way the farm complex is developed, without necessarily applying for any roads consent. So what's happened over time is that these concrete aprons that serve as a forecourt to the buildings have been implemented by the applicant over time without any roads input. And what this one results in is traffic accessing the minor road that is off to the left there was crossing the applicant's concrete apron. And so what we lose is the definition of where the public road junction is. So other traffic not using the farm, it might have been slightly confusing. It's not. So what the roads officer wanted was a clearer definition of the road geometry and the junction of the geometry, and where the U27 road meets the C4 road. So it's clearer for other users of that junction how it works, where the private land ends, where the public road starts.
Okay, thanks for that, Chairman. So just by making it more clear, it's narrowing things, it makes it safer. Thank you.
Jim McComb?
Thanks, Chair. 1, 2 on page 11. Could you explain the significance of the middle zone of the Bord Gas Erin pipeline? It's down near the bottom of page 11.
It's effectively just a constraint that we use on our GIS system. There is a main pipeline runs through the agricultural unit. Middle zone is an area that it's not actually over the pipe, so it's not an area of concern. It's an area to the side. It's like a byway, not a byway. It's just an area to flag up any concerns if there are any. In this case, there aren't any because it's not being proposed to be constructed over the pipeline.
So I take it it's in a buffer area, fairly close to the pipeline.
Yes, but other developments at the farm have actually being built over the middle area, and it wasn't raised as a concern in relation to those developments either.
Patsy?
Yeah, it was to do with the dark skies, Worthy, and you're quite happy that I see there to be no outside lights. I find that quite strange, actually, but there are no permanent outside lights, and the inside lights we have no control over. Is that right?
Yeah, it's noted at 4.11 of the report. The site falls in the buffer zone, and the LDP policy and supplementary guidance talks about impacts on the Dark Sky Park, which is the core area, and so this development falls outside of the Dark Sky Park. Although what we've noted is that we would suggest to the applicant, if they do propose any outside lights, that to follow the guidance, but that's as a directive rather than a strict requirement to adhere to it, given that they fall outside of the Dark Sky Park.
Alistair?
Thanks very much indeed, Chair. Just basically on that point, sir, I do take the point about, acting ultra vires, and endeavouring to try and condition it. No possibility of using something along the lines of a directive.
Thanks, Chair. Yes, that is exactly what we'll be doing. Paragraph 412 alludes to the fact that we will be attaching a directive that it should be in accordance with the Dark Skies Park.
Grateful for the clarification, Chair. Thank you.
Stephen?
Thank you. So again, on the same point to do with lighting, if I understand correctly, there's dark sky friendly lighting, which applies to the dark sky friendly zone, but there's also a more general lighting guidance, which is non-statutory, but sort of good practice, if you like. Which would be the safer to apply if it were a directive or condition?
David?
We would be using the Dark Sky Park guidance here with a directive. The non-statutory guidance hasn't actually, no, that doesn't actually need to go to the Scottish Government, so that's effectively the non-statutory guidance of the Council already. But the Dark Sky Park supplementary guidance has yet to clear through the Scottish Government, but what we've been doing for a number of years now is attaching a directive with the guide, which is on the Council's website. It's the one that I would want to use in this instance.
Any other member points of clarification from Dean? Nope. Thanks, Dean. As we have no one wishing to speak in objector, could we have Mr. Dodds, please, the applicant? Mr. Dodds, as it's a major application, you've got 5 minutes, and I'll let you know 30 seconds to go.
No, I just wanted to say that we appreciate the problem with the roads, and we have undertaken to do some corrections already, and we appreciate the problem we caused, and really just to say that it'll be dealt with as soon as possible. And we hope we improve the application. It's just a progress of our farming operation, and hope we don't interfere with other people. I'll answer any questions you want.
Thank you. Members, any questions? Jane?
Mr. Dodds, I'm curious on two accounts. I looked at the bund that had been created,
Yes.
and I just wondered whether the concrete had been removed under the bund. There's a beautiful bund.
Yes, it has
and
been
the
removed.
concrete-
Yes,
that-
there should be photographs, because that was a stipulation.
That's very comforting. Thank you very much. And Chairman, if I could also ask a second question, which is the pictures show like all these big sheds have lots of lights, lots of skylights, I suppose. I mean, they're thank you very much.
Yeah, there they are.
Yes, yes. And I just was wondering, because you'll probably have gathered that we have no direct control over what happens inside your sheds, but those of us who live in the countryside are aware that many of these sheds actually have orange sodium lights which shine out at night. And that, I was wondering whether you had any thoughts as to how that might be mitigated.
Sorry, no, I'm not. We need light, we need daylight, we need natural light to reduce our carbon footprint, really. You don't want, if we do away with these skylights, we'd have to have lights on 24 hours a day. So it's just burning more electricity. And there's no way I can stop light rising through.
Question. Jane?
Thank you. That wasn't absolutely the question. It was now I quite understand how you have to have daylight and natural light as far as possible. It's a question of the design of the cowling when you have lights inside so that they don't shine out.
All right, sorry.
Do you see what I mean?
Yes, sorry, yes. I'm sure that's something we can look at. If that's, yes, no problem.
Fine. Any other members? No? Right. Thanks, Mr. Dodds.
Thank you.
Members, we're now in session.
Thanks, Chairman. I mean, it is a major, that's why it's in front of us today, but I'm happy and content with what's been said, the questions that have been asked, and the guidance from Dean. Happy to move the recommendations as provided within the report.
Any other
I was
members?
just going to say the same, Chair, it's just short, swift, and just go with the recommendations.
Any other members otherwise minded? No. Gillian?
Thank you, Chair. Just to confirm that this application has been approved subject to the condition as detailed in the report. Thank you.
Now go on to item 5, land adjacent to the Crockett Memorial, Lauriston, 15/P/2/0060. We've got Judith Turnbull speaking on this one. Whenever you're ready, Judith.
Thank you, Chairman. Forgive me. Yes, first of all, before I start the slides, could I draw your attention to a correction on page 25 of the agenda? It's at paragraph 4.6. The paragraph at the moment reads, the proposed dwellings are modest in footprint and would be set within a curtilage of similar size to the other detached dwelling houses on nearby Church Road. Is it considered that the dwelling houses would result in overdevelopment of the site? That should read, it is not considered that the dwelling houses would result in overdevelopment of the site. Apologies. Same. Moving on to the images, this is the location plan. The site is located on the north of the village and what's currently part of an agricultural field. It's also to the north of the Crockett Memorial and immediately to the east of the A762 public road, which is the road from Lauriston through Mossdale to New Galloway along the western side of Loch Ken. Moving on to the block plan, the access is from a field gate and swings round to the rear of the dwelling houses, where parking and turning area is proposed. The site's elevated and some excavation is proposed for siting the dwelling houses. And the ground to the front of the dwelling houses between the front of the houses and the verge would be cut back to reduce the slope in this area. Plans, sections and elevations. The two dwelling houses are the same, single story with accommodation in the roof spaces and integral garages. The finishes would be white dry dash render to the external walls with red sandstone coins, and also in the feature panel around the front door, and it would have slate roof. This is the site from the northwest on the A762. It's really only northwest because of the bend in the road. It's really more north, from the north. The site is behind the large tree in the centre of the image, and the field gate to the left-hand side is where the access is taken. So the access will go through the field gate and then swing round to the right. The next image is just moving on from that. You'll see the tree. That tree in the middle is now on the left-hand side, and the site extends to behind the tree, like that. And that's Lauriston in the distance. Across the road is undeveloped land out round about the 30 mile. This is a view of the site from Lauriston looking north. You can't really see it very well, but the Crockett Memorial is in there. You'll see it clearer on another image. And the site is behind the Crockett Memorial. The position of the dwelling houses in relation to the memorial is discussed in paragraph 1.4 of my report. This is the site from the south on the A762. This is just at the edge of the village. You can see the memorial, the base of the memorial there, and the site in behind it. The next photograph is taken just from behind the memorial, looking out. That kind of gives you a view of the site and the slope down to the road on the left-hand side. The fence is actually like that. It's not distorted by the. This is taken from the site, looking back sort of towards the village along the road, along the southern boundary of the site. And the Crockett Memorial, I think that's just the base of it, you can see on the left. Within the now superseded Stewartshire local plan, this site was included as a designated housing site. In the LDP, no inset maps been provided for Lauriston, as it's now classified as a village, and the proposal is therefore required to be assessed against policy H2 and the associated supplementary guidance. Much has been made from representatives and the agent about application number 14P20215 for a residential development at the other side of the village near the play area. It was also an allocated site in the local plan. Unlike this site, applications were received when the local plan was current. And this is fully discussed in paragraph 413 of my report. So in conclusion, the proposed development is considered contrary to policy H2, as it would extend existing ribbon development along an otherwise undeveloped edge of the village, and is therefore recommended for refusal.
Thank you. Members, any points of clarification? Patsy?
Well, it's just on that, actually. What date did this application come in? Bear with me. The date stamp on the drawing is the 2nd of March, so it was round about the 2nd of March. So you didn't have an application in last August? There has been a previous application in, and that is discussed in paragraph 1.7 of the report.
No, Pat? Any other?
No, I just had.
Any other members? Ian?
It's
on the same point, I was going to raise it when we went into session, but I suppose it's appropriate now, Judith, over to your left. But it's just in regards to that point, because when I seen this, I kind of wondered when Colin drew it in, I looked at it, I tried to understand where he was coming from, because he referred to the other one. So if you could just give us the detail in regards to, there was a previous application in regards to Stuart local plan, how the plan's changed, has it changed, the timelines of how the actual application came in? Because when you look into some of the history, it's a wee bit confusing. It looks as if it could have been in time to have been interpreted the same as the old one, as the previous one, the 14P, but it's been interpreted in regards to the new policy. It looks like the old one should have been took consideration the new local development plan policies as well. So just if you could run us through the history, Judith, in regards to, because there's a comparison there in the reason to why it's been drawn in. Colin's referred to the previous plan application, and just so I've got a clear understanding, why have you looked at this one differently compared to the last one? Other than just a broad, I'm not looking for a broad answer, being used to be Stuart local plan, now local development plan. A bit more detail on that, please.
David?
I can maybe help with that, Chair. You'll recall that the local development plan came into adoption in September 2014. So basically the 2006 statutory local plan and the 1999 structure plan for Dumfries and Galloway were instantly superseded in September 2014 as soon as this came in. So that application that's referred to in paragraph 1.7 was determined in January 2015, by which time the LDP was in place. So you can actually see that the policy which is cited there as its refusal is H2 of the local development plan. So that application was considered under the current local development plan. It was refused under delegated powers. Obviously, this application has come before for members today.
Ian?
The application, just so I'm absolutely clear, the application that Colin's referred to, I think is a site what was previous in the Stuart local plan. And was it approved? I think it was approved. Just when you're saying one was refused, it was approved. Was it approved under the old policy, the new policy, and just what the difference is between? Because that's what I think has been implied.
Judith can perhaps assist with this, but to the best of my knowledge, there was no application on this site. It was identified for development in the local plan, but on this particular site, there wasn't an application within the time period of the statutory local plan. Hopefully Judith can confirm that.
Sorry, Chairman, I've not explained myself. I absolutely agree with that. It's not this site, it's the one that was there was another one in the local plan, and it's the difference, because I think that's what Colin's inferred. I haven't spoke to Colin, it's just I'm reading what's in the report, and it looks like he's saying this should be determined in the same way as the last one, because it comes under the same policies. I'm just trying to get to the bottom of that.
Right, sorry, I'm with you now. Yes, the other site was subject to an application within the time period of the statutory local plan, therefore would have been considered under those policies. Obviously, as a council, we've got to consider every application under the development plan that's in place at that time. Is that correct, Judith?
Yeah. So just for absolute clarity, and the other application was determined before the 1st of September. Is that what we're saying?
Judith?
Sorry, what application do you refer to?
Sorry, because I haven't got, I think it's one that Colin, but the one on the other site, which was there was two sites identified for this.
It was July. Yeah,
it was July, so it was before September 14, right? Okay, thank you.
Any other members? Ivor?
Chair, the application dealt with at 1.7 in the papers, 14P to 0357. Was that in prior to the 1st of September, post the 1st of September? Because if it's in prior, I would have thought that we would still have used, because you would determine on the plan that you're acting on at the time. That would be sort of natural justice. You would put something in on what was in place at the time.
David?
It's not really a question of natural justice. You're required under Section 25 of the Planning Act to determine applications under the development plan that's in place at the time of determination. So you can get situations where an application is submitted under one set of development plan rules, but by the time it's determined, other things might come in place. Now, how much weight you would actually give as a material consideration the fact of when it was submitted versus that would probably depend just how long the application had been in. For example, if it was submitted the day before the LDP was adopted, you'd probably give it less weight than one that had been submitted and considered all the way through, maybe over a period of months or even years before it's determined. But bottom line is we are required under the legislation to determine each application under the development plan that is in place at the time of its determination, not submission.
Fine, Ivor. Any other members? No. We've got no one here to speak in the objectors. Could we have Mr. Connolly, the agent, please? You have 3 minutes, Mr. Connolly, and I'll let you know 30 seconds to go. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, really what we're just talking about is what my client is seeking from the council, and that's in the consideration of the application is the terms of approach for the development of the settlement, the interpretation and implementation of its policy, and what is regarded as an appropriate form of development in the settlement. My application was submitted on the 24th of August 2014, and the local plan was adopted on the 29th of September, so it was in for at least a whole month before the plan came in force. Given that the council had previously identified the site as suitable for housing, you know, as they had with the similar site to the south of the village, my client fails to see a consistency in one application being approved and one being refused. The case officer did take into consideration the local development plan for the south site and indicates that in her report that it was in fact of considerable concern to that site. Whilst there is no longer an inset map for Warriston in the local development plan, this is the case with many villages and previous sites, as the local development plan is a much smaller document and does not contain all the settlement maps that are in previous stewardship of local plan. The development is acceptable as a linear development, but that too is similar to the one at the south of the village and is a typical of the village in that it's a linear village on either side of the main road and on a single side of Church Road within the village. The design of the houses is set on the hill, and the existing hedge will be retained to limit the visual impact of the houses. Thank you.
Thank you. Any members? In fact,
Can you tell me, is there a need for these houses from the applicant?
Yeah, the applicant is recently became the owner of the ground actually belongs to Dornell's estate, and the owner is keen to build a couple of houses to accommodate workers on certain occasions throughout the year. The houses would also be available for rental. They're not for sale. They're to be built as houses for the rented accommodation, and there is a shortage of rentable accommodation in the Warriston area.
thank you. Any other members? Right, thank you, Mr. Connolly. Members, we're now in session.
Yeah, it would have been good if Councillor Wiper had actually come along, give us an understanding of his perspective on this thing. He called it in, and this is a couple of times that the planning application has been called in by councillors and haven't turned up for to give us their understanding. Just looking at the whole report and the policies that's been determined to refuse, I can't see anything wrong with the refusal of this and just go with the recommendation.
Ian?
Thanks, Chairman. I suppose just a bit of clarification before I make my mind up, because it's unbalanced for me, because there is, in my eyes, it certainly has got the principle of development has been achieved because of the previous identification within the local plan, but whether that's the view of the committee or not, it could be different. It could be the same, could be different. It's today. It's 24th of August. Is that the validation date? Is that before? Is that when it was submitted? Is that the record that we've got? I think it was it the 1st of September we actually agreed to, or was it later than that, the local development plan? It was referred to a month. I think my mind's it's in about a week, but still, the information we received there that it was before the local development plan. This application was submitted before the development plan was actually agreed. and then, well, that was it coming back to the Scottish Government.
Yeah, I've got my copy of the LDP here, but there isn't an actual date. It just says was adopted by the council in September 2014, so 26, around there.
Tom?
I'm happy second Councillor Drybrough, because it strikes me, when you look at the pictures there, that the Crockett Memorial itself is a long-standing and makes a very natural boundary to the village in any case. This development got out with the boundary. It's been the boundary of that village for many a long year.
Tom, Patsy?
Yeah, well, I think this has fallen between two stools, if you like. You know, you've got an application in under one set of rules and regulation, and then another set have come in, and it's been judged on that. So I have slight concerns about that. I do agree with Mr. Connolly. This is, Lauriston is a sort of linear village. There's lots of sort of long bits of road going with where you can see it set out on the map. I went and had a look at it yesterday because I wasn't entirely sure where the application site was. And I don't actually consider that this is ribbon development because it fits in actually quite well if you go and look at the site. I also kind of think it fits in with our local development plan in that, you know, you want rural economies to be viable. Well, this is going to bring in people to work, to live there, you know, and allows towns and villages to become vibrant. So I think that's a good thing. It's been said in the report that the visual impact is not considered an overdevelopment of the site. We've had that clarified. Land use conflict is okay. The road safety is okay. Servicing is okay. I just have a concern that this actually probably should be up.
You got the grounds in there, Shelley? You got grounds, Patsy?
Well, but I don't agree that it is. It does lead to ribbon development because there is a house beyond this in Lauriston, and that it fits with our local development plan in that it will make the rural economy viable. It will help make the town vibrant, and whilst it is slightly complicated. So perhaps you could help me.
My least favourite position to always be in. I'm picking up on what you've said before, that because of the timing in which it was submitted and the previous identification, I mean, it would have to be regarded as an exception to policy. You could give some material weight to the previous allocation, and can I be absolutely sure, Judith, when was the application made valid? Because that's it's not when it was submitted, but the date you've got there in the plan. Because if I'm right, this one actually came in, was it March, 2nd of March, you said? So I mean, if this application was made valid on the 2nd of March, then I don't think you can argue anything other than this particular application has to be considered and has been submitted during the adoption of the LDP. So the weight of the previous development plan has very little weight, but it might be something that you wish to consider in the motion you put forward, is saying that previously it was identified in a plan. But as officers, I would have to say that the fact that no development came forward between 2006 and 2014 would raise queries about the effectiveness of that site. And obviously we've looked at it afresh. Should it be included any longer, and concluded that it's now contrary to the current policies which are in place. But other issues about how it's not ribbon development, well, as officers we've clearly taken the view that it is ribbon development. Paragraph 4.5 gives the explanation for that. If you were minded to go forward for an approval as well, the other thing I would highlight at the bottom of paragraph 4.6 was issues about design were flagged up both in the representations and concerns by ourselves. So it's saying use of appropriate conditions could address some of those design concerns. The one I particularly disliked myself was the design of the dormer at the rear of the building. Which got the photos of that. I felt that was rather inappropriate, but certainly it'd be useful to know if members are minded to go with going contrary to recommendation that it should be subject to conditions to address some of the design concerns. But I'm not sure I've heard a competent ground there at the moment, but it could be amended to get there.
Ian?
Well, if Councillor Gilroy is moving approval on grounds of economic stimulus and development as an exception to policy, I would certainly second that. That's competent.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, while I understand the requirements and desires to build houses, I would require some justification, actually concrete justification, because we've done that in the past. We've always required justification for going away from policy, and that has not been presented to me. That's simply a fact, whether I was minded to agree or disagree. I am familiar with the site. This is a special year for Crockett, and some of us have trailed up and down and been up to see the memorial. So actually, as it happened, I am familiar with the area. And as the photographs show you, it's actually surprisingly out of the village. The village does look linear, but if you go beyond it, with the topography of the countryside there, the fact is it's very hilly. It's really quite specifically ended off on the village, and it's quite clear also that there is the 30-mile-an-hour limit is just round the corner from there. I think it showed it where the 30-mile-an-hour limit was. There, yes. And then you can see the village. It's what you sort of expect. Now, I would suggest to you that anything further out from where you're glimpsing that village there is something that is not naturally connected to the village. It is actually, I think, urban development. So with the greatest respect to my fellow members, I think probably they don't totally understand the design of this particular village, and I would say that really it is linear development in this particular instance. So I entirely support those members who are going with the recommendation.
Thank you, Jane. David?
Thanks, Chair. Councillor Gilroy mentioned that the house further out. How much further out is it from the village on the proposal? Do you have any idea?
I don't know exact figures, but you can see it just in the north of the image there on the map. If I had to hazard a guess. $40 or $50 meters.
400.
Sorry, no, not 40 or 50. 200, about 200, maybe 200, 100 meters.
That's fine, Chair. Thanks very
But
much
I'm
for
not-
that. I think Councillor Maitland was on about ribbon development, and as is mentioned in the papers, there's no identifiable boundary around this proposal, and just kind of use Midtown as an extension to the edge of the village. I think it would be getting totally out of hand, and I would certainly agree that we go with the recommendation.
Joanne?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, at the moment we have a motion by Councillor Drybrow, seconded by Councillor McCaughtry, to refuse the application of the grounds detailed in the report, and we have an amendment by Councillor Gilroy, seconded by Councillor Dick, to approve the application as an exception to policy in that there is economic and sustainable development benefit. Go to a vote.
Chairman, just to put a couple of points across before we do go to the vote, if that's okay, just in regards to, I mean, I think we've got to see more and more of these as we come forward. I think, as a council, and when we say council, I mean councils, we've actually put the planners in quite a difficult position, because this has got to come up again and again. Where else, I've looked at quite a few in my area, like Powfoot, Borland, Eskdale-Muir, Housegar, there's loads of them, and it's the same, doesn't matter where you look. There's no infill sites, it's only extensions. We made quite a clear policy that we can't, quite clear policy, which I missed on it, which I would have raised at the time, that it would have been this ribbon extension. I would have certainly picked up on that wording when it came to that. But certainly, I think we have a Stuart housing market area. I think that's important. We have an identified need. We've said this is a clear intent to build. There's a couple of houses here. There's people ready to occupy. I think that's quite clear. I personally would agree with Patsy. Midtown is that this is a natural infill site, but clearly there's been a planner's view in this. So I would say I would happy to make an exception to policy for the reasons already outlined. But I think in regards to, we need to, and Stuart is in as much demand for local affordable housing as anywhere else is, whether it's rented for sale, whatever it may be. And I would support it for the reasons that it's been put forward in regards to the economic sustainable development reasons.
Thank you. If we could go to the vote.
Brief point, Andy.
Yes, thanks. Maybe just for some clarification, maybe help us in our deliberations, Chair, with your leave. Looking at that map there, where does the 30 mile an hour sign actually sit? It's actually be clearer to us if it was able to be pointed out on that map rather than in some of the pictures we've seen. So that looks to me as though the site is mainly or almost entirely within the 30 mile bound of the village.
If we could
Can we go to the vote?
proceed to the vote. Councillor Martin. Motion. Councillor Dempster.
Motion.
Councillor Carruthers.
Amendment.
Councillor Dick.
Amendment.
Councillor Dryborough.
Motion.
Councillor Ferguson.
Amendment.
Councillor Geddes.
Amendment.
Councillor Gilroy. Councillor Groom.
Amendment.
Councillor Hislop.
Amendment.
Councillor Maitland.
Motion.
Councillor McCautry. Councillor McComb.
Amendment.
Councillor McCutcheon.
Amendment.
Councillor McKee. Councillor Thompson.
Amendment.
With 6 votes to the motion and 10 to the amendment, the application has been approved as an exception to policy, and that there's economic and sustainable development benefit to that with conditions.
Gillian, got the item 6 on the
Chair,
agenda.
Chair,
now.
just on that one, obviously there'll have to be conditions approved.
Gillian did say conditions, subject to conditions.
It's not
Jane.
entirely clear to us what conditions had been put on this, because the indication was the design was inappropriate, and so we've simply given a blank sheet to the officers to come up with some suitable design. Have we? I mean, could I have help from the other members, please, on this? What have they decided?
I personally was happy with what Mr. Sutton suggested, that the dormer at the rear was the main design problem.
Conditions.
Well, I mean, it would really be to address the issues that were flagged up in the report in paragraph 4.6. I'm not sure we can do anything about the top-heavy, disproportionately high roof. That's just one of those things we're going to have to live with, I'm afraid, because that's inherent in the design. But the dormer, I think, within the roof space probably could be improved by getting away from the proportions and the window location of it, and some of the finishes would be more appropriate in a suburban location, so we'd be looking for finishes which would be more appropriate in that location, maybe moving away from dry dash to wet dash, that sort of detailing.
Please, Jane.
Chair, I'm just becoming a bit concerned that we're actually making policy on the hoof. The conditions that we need are quite clear, that when a planning application comes forward, there are conditions within the, now, it's been approved, we can't do nothing about that, but I think really the conditions, when members actually come forward, that's exceptions to rules, it's against the recommendations, all that, we need to make sure those conditions are implemented, whatever is going forward.
Cheers up, Jane. We'll move on to item 6, the vacant plot adjacent to Glen Cottage, Main Street, Kirkcaldy, 15/B/1/0119. We've got Billy Murray speaking in this one.
Yes, thank you, Chair. As you say, this is an application for planning permission for 2 dwelling houses on an infill site on Main Street, Kirkcaldy. I'll run you through the slides so that you can understand the site. This is the application site showing the northern end of Kirkcaldy Village, which is a pretty linear village, harking back to the last application, but this is clearly an infill site, as you'll see from the report. This is a view of the site frontage from Main Street. It's defined by that hedge at the moment. The site is quite narrow in terms of its developable area by virtue of a steep embankment to the rear that runs down to the burn. So this is just a view of the flat top, the higher part of the site up at road level. That's from south to north, and this one is an equivalent from north to south. That's a view back towards the street with the existing access, at the moment. This is a view from the front looking towards the back. As you see, it drops off the edge there to this steep embankment that runs down to the burn. So that's a view showing the rear section of the site, and similar view in the central part of the site. Perhaps when I'm there, I'll just clarify that you may note that there is mention of flood risk and an objection from flood risk management team requesting additional information. Because that was done, their advice was on the basis of a desktop study. Part of the site is shown to be within a flood risk area from the burn, but a site visit makes it abundantly clear that because of the topography, the risk of flooding in this site is absolutely negligible. Indeed, if this site were to flood, we'd all be in a lot of trouble. So that's a view of Main Street where it fronts the site, looking from south to north. Now, there are a number of views following of the street itself, and clearly that is because there is a single reason for refusal here, the single determining issue being the lack of on-street parking. So I would ask members to note the situation on the street. That's the situation as it was on the day these slides were taken. Cars parking on the footway outside the site. And I think this is the issue that the roads officer makes reference to in terms of there already being evidence of parking on the footway which causes obstruction and threat to pedestrian users. Kirkcaldy has got a very narrow Main Street. It's also characterised by terraced properties, so there's little or no off-street parking for any of the properties on both sides of Main Street, almost for its entire length. It also has significant lengths of double yellow lines to address the issues that were caused because there being no off-street parking, parking is concentrated on-street, and that was narrowing the carriageway to such an extent that it was causing obstruction. So therefore, on that basis, I think double yellow lines were applied. So I just took a number of views up through the site so that you can get an impression of what the rest of the village is like in that context. So this is a drive-through, if you will, of the site from south to north, showing the double yellow lines. They switch from side to side as you go through the village. Some places they're both sides as they are. Some places they're one side. Some places they're the other. This is us approaching up through the village towards the site. So as I said, the key determining issue, in fact the only determining issue, is the issue of off-street parking. There are no other issues in terms of design, servicing or the like. These are the designs. there were 2 septic tanks to be installed as well. So that's the detail of the septic tanks. So just also to clarify the background to this application, there was a previous application in 2014. It was refused under delegated powers. It was an identical application, an identical proposal to this. It was refused under delegated powers for the same reason as the recommendation on this application. That refusal was considered by the local review body. The local review body took the same decision and refused the application for the grounds that it was refused under delegated powers. So, in conclusion, this application is recommended for refusal for the same reason as previous.
Thank you, Billy. Members, points of clarification. Ian?
Thanks, Chairman. I was on the local review body, just for the record. It was very much an unbalanced decision. It was very close, but as it was. But what I'd like clarification on was we see when you look from the site up the main street, I think the slide is, Billy, in regards to that. And we've got from the site, that's it, looking up the main street. You can see the change between the pavement and the yellow line. No, looking up the main street, sorry, not towards the site. Oh, so I didn't stop you. There. Now, I just wondering what the geometries of the road are there. You're looking at a footpath, it looks about maybe 1,200, 4 feet wide, something like that, maybe 5 feet at the most. When you look back in front of the site, and you can see that the road narrows there from where it is on the frontage of the site that's being proposed. I wonder if you've got any idea what the geometries are. You've got, look at a 4 or 5 foot footpath there, and when you turn around and look at the front of the site, it looks like you've got a car set. It looks like about a 2.5 metre wide footpath with a hedge line, and the road is much wider. So I just wondered, when the whole, because we won't actually see it in front of us, it looks as if you could actually put in an equivalent footpath and still have enough room for a car to park in the front, or even a couple of cars for each dwelling. Just because that was one of our concerns at the LRB. We just couldn't get the clarification. I think there was conflicting advice from roads officers as well. At least we certainly felt there was, and there was a change of policy going for the Road Scotland 1984 Act, or a Red Book as a local interpretation, and designing streets and how that would apply. Because designing streets asks that you close everything down, and it makes the road safer. The old Road Scotland 1984 Act says no, open everything up, and it makes everything safer. So it's quite conflicting. So I'm just wondering, going back to my original question, what's the geometries like? What would that look like if it was the same size of footpath, which on the main street is be applied there? How wide would that road be?
I can't give you dimensions, but I think if you look, the circumstances are, if you look at that image, you see the building line of the 2-storey property on the right. That's the building line of the terrace of houses. The actual hedge line is set back from that. So effectively, I think that's where the additional width in that footway is coming from. The curb line on the footway is continuous with the remainder of Main Street, but the frontage of the site actually steps back. So therefore, that's where the additional width. And yes, it is quite clear that the footway there is wider than the footway for the remainder of Main Street, for the reasons I've tried to explain, that because of the building line of the terrace properties on Main Street.
So just for the record, and Chair, just about more clarity in regards to that, are you saying, Billy, they'll be building on what's classed as the public domain at the moment, or will they be building behind the line?
No, I'm not at all. I'm simply trying to explain why that footway is wider than the rest of the footway. I mean, the hedge line is the boundary of the site. All development will be within the site, would be within the site.
Tom?
Yeah, I mean, if you just confirm that there was permission granted for one dwelling house in that site, but it had parking within the site, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. If I refer you to the planning history, I think it was 2010, 10P298, planning permission for erection of dwelling house granted conditionally in August 2010. Yes, that was a single house with off-street parking.
Alistair?
Thanks very much, Chair. Would it be, my question, sir, is, would it be a competent, if that's doable, as it were, to recess the footpath, would that be would that be a competent condition to insert in any grant of planning permission? Because the blunt fact of the matter is that, if you're going to allow parking on site, the vehicles are still going to have to come across that footpath onto the road. And it would seem to me, if it's doable, that might be a way of overcoming the issue. But as I say, would it be a competent condition, if it is doable, to recess the footpath in a bit, as it were, and deal with it on that basis?
David?
Not convinced, for the simple reason it's requiring the developer to do something over which they have no control. It's requiring the council to... So can I be clear what your meaning is? To actually, the footway that you're saying there is wide. You're talking about actually widening the road out to reduce the footway width. I don't think that would be competent, simply because you're involving requirements on the roads authority to do something on land within their control, which they may or may not be agreeable to. So I wouldn't want to attach that as a planning condition.
That was the thrust of my question, Chair. I'm grateful for the answer.
Thanks. Jim?
Thanks. You're just going to refer members to 4.5. The council roads officer objected on the grounds that there's no on-site parking. The normal council standard is for 2 spaces per house. And we're just about the stage again of rewriting council and legislation on the hoof. And I think this is very unfortunate. But that's the standard. And if we write it off, we'll be writing off for every other applicant that comes along behind. My apologies.
Andy?
Just for clarity here, currently outside the site and opposite on the other side of the road, Billy, there's no road restriction, parking restrictions whatsoever. Am I right? And just the second question, in a very small village like this, am I right? There's absolutely no objection from any local.
You're correct on both points. There's no parking restrictions on that part of the road fronting the site, and there are no third-party objections.
Thanks very much.
Right. No other members? Some points of clarification. Could have there are no objectors. The agent, Edwin Adamson, please. And you've got 3 minutes, Mr. Adamson. I'll let you know 30 seconds to go.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to begin by tackling the issue of objection from the Roads Department. As you will note, the objection is based mainly around road safety and suggests pedestrian safety is compromised, and also that a single dwelling with off-street parking would be more appropriate to the site. We would argue to the contrary, that pedestrian safety would be greater compromised if vehicles were crossing over the footpath from the road, accessing and egressing the site. This problem would be further exacerbated if these vehicles were accessing and egressing between parked cars, compromising both road users and pedestrians alike. Off-street parking is therefore, in my opinion, a bigger compromise to road safety than on-street parking, where the footpath is not breached in any instance. I must also point out that this is the opinion of the local roads officer, Mr. Peter Wilson, whom during our pre-application advice meeting held in April last year before any plan application was made, and he stated, and I quote, "In this instance, on-street car parking would offer a lesser danger to pedestrians and road users alike, since the additional on-street parking would act as a traffic calming measure. Vehicles parked in the street would not have access and egress visibility compromised by other parked vehicles, and the integrity of the footpath would be maintained." Mr. Wilson has been the go-to roads consultee for planning for many years. His experience, and particularly his local knowledge in this instance, cannot be ignored. Indeed, having spoken to him before this meeting, he's happy to confirm to the chair, the member who called this application in, or any other member of the committee, that he remains committed to the view which is totally contrary to the views of the council's hub team. I feel it would be wrong to dismiss expert opinion and local knowledge in this instance. With regard to additional on-street parking requirements caused by the development of this site, ladies and gentlemen, there's no better examiners of this issue than the surrounding residents and neighbours, and if on-street parking was such an issue, as suggested by the hub team, I'm sure that there would have been neighbours objecting to this proposal, which can be seen from the report. There are no, there are no such objectors. The only other point I wish to make is that this application demonstrates the infill of a clear gap site within the village streetscape. The design has taken account of the surrounding built form, mass, scale and material finish of the surrounding terraced houses. To build a single dwelling house with off-street parking would offer a less desirable addition to the streetscape, part of which is in a conservation area. which we have taken careful consideration of with this application. Houses are both of low-cost construction, around 80,000 per dwelling, and low energy design, which make them ideal for the affordable rental market.
30 seconds to go.
Thank you. First-time market. We feel this type of development in this location meets the demand of low-cost affordable housing for the private sector in what is a remote and depopulated area, and is also conducive to the demands of Scottish central government in meeting a nationally recognised shortage of low-cost affordable housing with greener footprints. We therefore ask the committee to approve the application on the basis of local demand, wider economic benefit to the village in particular and the region as a whole, and dismiss the hub's
Thank you, Edwin.
objection, last sentence,
Right, go on.
and dismiss the hub team's objection on the basis of contrary expert opinion by the local roads officer familiar with the site, location and traffic conditions.
Thank you. Members?
One point of clarification, it's not a determining issue, but Edwin mentioned that part of Kirkcalrum is a conservation area. That's not the case. Kirkcalrum is not a conservation area.
Yeah, I mean, I think the agent mentioned low-cost affordable housing. What price would you be charging for these houses?
In terms of rent, or in terms of build, or in terms of final cost?
It's not Tom, that's not really a relevant planning matter here.
Well, it's no mention in our report. I mean, I get a wee bit worried when I hear agents talk about low-cost affordable housing as if it's some kind of line we're going to buy.
You talk about health and safety and people walking on the pavements. Now that picture showed 3 cars already parked on that bit of pavement. Now I don't know what sort of people live in Kirkcalrum, whether disabled, using wheelchairs, people with prams and that sort of thing. And you're talking about health and safety. If people are walking up that part of pavement, they're going to have to go on the road and run the risk of being hit by cars on the road, as it is at the present moment. And surely there'll be a less risk if the owner of the property had his cars parked off the road. And you're already doing away with 3 parking spaces on the pavement.
Is that a statement or a question, David?
Well, it's a bit of both. How can he justify off-road parking when you've got 3 cars parked on the pavement, blocking the pavement? You're talking about health and safety. Right. How are they going to overcome that?
Right, I think we've got that. Ed?
I'm happy to answer that, Chair. The 3 cars that you see parked there are firstly obviously not the owner's cars, and I think it would be fair to say that regardless of whether this be Kirkcalrum or any other village in the region, whenever there's a dormant site, you know, people using opposing properties or visitors to the area, you know, they naturally park in front of these because they're not blocking driveways and accesses. I think, to be perfectly honest with you, if there was 2 houses in front of that pavement there, as the member rightly sees, parking would be constrained to the road. I think it's just natural that anybody parking a car where there's a gap site such as that would park it there because it's not causing interference to any other road users or indeed owners of properties.
Right, I'm just wondering here, there was an application accepted for 1 house plus parking in sight. Why have we went for 2 with no parking?
Thanks, Chair. The house that was approved, the single dwelling house with off-street parking, was an application made by the previous owner of the site, not the current applicant. In our opinion, or in my opinion certainly as architect for the site, and I think again if members were concerned with it, a site visit would certainly highlight this point. The design of the previous house with off-street parking, in my opinion, I felt was out of keeping with the streetscape of Kirkcalrum. As you can see from the pictures Billy's provided, fully terraced. And as I say, our design takes more consideration of the overall planning and streetscape of Kirkcalrum, and we felt it was a better application. And also, as I said, it does tackle the issue of the remote depopulated area in terms of additional affordable housing. If you look at the design of the houses, they are very small. They are small 2-bedroom houses aimed specifically at that target sector of the rental market.
Thanks. Any other members? No. Thanks, Edwin. Members, we're now in session. Ian?
Just in reference to the site visit, I may as well put it forward to see what other members are thinking. I mean, it would certainly make a difference to me. I can see in the pictures, being at LRB, but I'm really confused over the width of the road and what potential of the realignment of the front, the 11-inch curb on the front, if there's a potential for that, and which could provide a betterment to on-street parking even as we go forward. We could probably bottom that out if we went on a site visit. So certainly I'd like to hear what other members are thinking before putting my view on what's in front of us at the moment.
Tom?
I'm happy to go along with a site visit because it sat in the LRB as well, and that was one of the considerations of the traffic situation. And I haven't really changed my mind from the decision reached by the LRB, quite frankly. But I think the one advantage of a site visit would be we could have the roads engineer there with us, and the very point raised by Councillor Geddes about whether he could put a cut in there to accommodate parking, or B, if it was minded to grant 2 houses, whether the roads engineers would agree to extend the yellow lines past that curtilage there that would stop any parking whatsoever on the pavement, and that would take account of the issues raised by Councillor McKee. So I think on these 2 issues, I'm happy to go for a site visit, provided the roads engineer's there, because the parking issue would appear to be the relevant issue above anything else. And I think a site visit in this case may well be useful.
Jane?
Actually, I'm not going to demur from the site visit, but what I was actually going to ask, though, Chairman, really, is that in terms of process, it sounds to me as if we're going to go on a site visit, then haggle about the details. Would we actually not be better and cleaner to refuse this application? And the agent, I will say in parenthesis, I think it's rather a good design. The agent should take into account the what has been said today and bring back another application.
Thank you, Jane. Alistair?
Well, I certainly would support, particularly on the basis of Tom's comments, Chair, going for a site visit. But, you know, the comment I would make at the moment, because, I mean, essentially, if that's been moved, I'm not quite sure if it's been formally moved and seconded, but if it has been formally moved, I would have no compunction in seconding it. But the issue, as far as I'm concerned, sir, is, the case officer has already indicated, that this is the only issue in relation to the recommended refusal of the application. There's no issue with the design and the sort of scale, etc. And I think that if we were to go, look at the possibilities, and most importantly of all, have someone from the Roads Hub there to answer the questions, that would be beneficial. And
Jim?
I'll move it.
I'd be interested to know what the members are trying to achieve. You've already been told that it wouldn't be appropriate place condition that the applicant couldn't comply with. And will the rest of the Kirkham community be happy if the footway is suddenly shortened by half its existing width? Where do you finish up in that exercise? So I'd be interested to know what you want to achieve and whether or not it's achievable before you go down the road you're going trailing about Kirkham.
Gillian? Thank
you, Chair. It was just to confirm that at the moment we had a motion from Councillor Crothers for a site visit, seconded by Councillor McCautry. Is there anybody putting forward an amendment to that?
I'll put forward an amendment. I think we've got enough information here, and it is contrary to the local development plan.
This is just on the site visit at the moment.
I mean, that's why I don't think we should have a site visit. That's what I'm saying it against.
And I'll second we don't have a site visit.
Okay, if we could take a vote on the site visit. Motion by Councillor Carruthers, seconded by Councillor McCautry to have a site visit. An amendment by Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Dempster, to have no site visit and determine. Councillor Martin?
Amendment.
Councillor Dempster?
Amendment.
Councillor Carruthers?
Motion.
Councillor Dryborough?
Amendment.
Councillor Ferguson?
Motion.
Councillor Geddes?
Motion.
Councillor Gilroy? Councillor Groom?
Motion.
Councillor Hislop?
Amendment.
Councillor Maitland?
Amendment.
Councillor McCautry?
Motion.
Councillor McComb?
Motion.
Councillor McCutcheon?
Motion.
Councillor McKee?
Amendment.
And Councillor Thompson.
Amendment.
With 8 votes to the motion and 7 to the amendment, a site visit will take place.
Right, so this item will be deferred to after the site visit, and I hope most members can make that site visit. Patsy?
I have to ask something which has come out of the discussions here, is that there's been a conflict of advice from roads officers and roads hub, and I just wonder what we do about that at the site.
Obviously, what we used to have were 4 individual roads officers. And one of the things that has been put in place over the last couple of years is the introduction of the roads hub, where it's to ensure that we get consistent advice from the various officers coming to the officers, because as planning officers, we haven't for many years worked on an area office basis in the same way that there are 4 roads office bases. And we were finding inconsistencies in advice, and this roads hub was a mechanism of ensuring that priorities were given and consistent advice was coming out. So what I will certainly do is I will put this back to the relevant roads officers that they appear to have had inconsistent advice. Really, all advice should be being sought through the council's formal pre-application advice, not going to individual roads officers. It should come in as a planning inquiry through the planning officers. We will then undertake consultation with the roads hub and obtain the appropriate consultation advice. So correct due process wouldn't appear to have been followed here, which is why by using the old area office thing, there's maybe been inconsistent advice.
Jim?
Just briefly on the same point. I think we've said before in this committee, when a roads officer makes an objection to an application, they actually be present in case members have an inquiry, and it may be that we'd have been able to circumvent a site visit had that officer been present today. So I think in certain circumstances, we should try and ensure that the appropriate officers are there to speak to their objection.
We'll take note of that, Jim. Get brief, Tom.
Just in the same point, because that was a matter that came out at the LRB, the fact that we now had one set of officers operating across the region to ensure we've got a consistent level of advice. So if that is the case, then there's no problem about, I think one of the arguments for not having roads officers here was you'd be tying up 4 or 5 different roads officers to attend planning committee meetings. Now we have the hub operating one system across the region, then there's no problem whatsoever if roads are going to object to applications for somebody to represent them at the meeting. And that would save site visits, save having to defer things for further questions.
Thanks for that brief comment, Tom. Members of no other issue. Item 7 on the agenda, the installation of an outdoor hot tub retrospective at 16 Cairnyard Holiday Lodges, Lokenhead, Beeswing, number 15/B/3/0125, and speaking on this one is Beth Halliday. Right, Beth, so whenever you're ready to go.
Thank you, Chair. This is a retrospective planning application for the installation of an outdoor hot tub at 18 Cairnyard Lodges, Lochinhead, near Beeswing. This application is before committee today as there have been more than 6 third-party objections. Before I go through the presentation, I would like to point out a correction at part 3 on page 40, where Margaret Murray's address has been incorrectly entered. This should have stated Tree Lodge, Cairnyard, instead of the application. This was brought to our attention, and members should be assured that the correct procedures have been followed in relation to it. I will now go through the presentation. Right, this is the application site. The location shown in red, showing the rest of Cairnyard Park. And the site plan showing the actual lodge, number 18, with the hot tub to the rear. Then the hot tub dimension. Quite faint, but written in the report, but 2.3 by 2.1 metres. This is number 18 from the lane, lodge, and then a view of the actual hot tub itself, and looking to the boundary with number 17. Just a closer shot again showing the boundary with number 17. Again, just trying to show the rear of the lodge, the actual patio here. Again, the actual hot tub. And then showing the boundary with number 19. And then the view. This proposal is recommended for approval and
Thanks, Beth. Members? Ian?
Just a brief one. How does this permittable development rights? I just thought it would have came under that, but clearly it isn't because it's in front of us. But in regards to that,
Yes, holiday lodges themselves don't actually benefit from permitted development rights. So this was reported to us as a breach, so we therefore had to pursue it through to seek an application.
Any other member? Charles, you've got 3 minutes. I'll let you know 30 seconds
Right,
to
okay,
go.
no problem. Good morning, councillors. First of all, I'm going to give a little rhetorical question here. How would you like it if you were in a house and somebody put in a hot tub and had blaring music every night whilst you were trying to have a quiet evening in your garden? How would you like that? I think I know what the answer is. I know what my answer would certainly be. I would not be happy with that. Secondly, the pictures showed the hot tub, but not with the sound system that goes with it. As you noticed, the pictures were all covered. Now, there is a sound system that carries all over the site, because I have had people walking their dogs past the site wondering what on earth the noise was. This hot tub is outside. If it was next to me, I would certainly not be happy about it. Also, there is more than one hot tub on the site. Okay, so although this is only an application for one, there is more than one. There are also, if this goes through, that could possibly mean giving way to noise and external hot tubs. Now, people who go to this site, I'm not against the hot tub. The hot tub that's not the problem. The problem is the noise associated with the speakers that not everybody wants to listen to. They're not big gardens. They're very close together. And I think it's very unfair that what is at the moment a site with no lighting, no amenities, it has no shop, it has no pub. In the Burdens, which is a legal document, which seems to be ignored by planning, it quite openly states that anything unusual or different should gain the respect of the other owners of the property. That seems to have gone slightly awry. It is a legal document, but the main problem is not the hot tub. You know, if you want noise, if people come to Dumfries and Galloway, we've had umpteen people coming to Dumfries and Galloway.
30 seconds to go, Charles.
Right, okay. Come to our lodge. They come for peace and quiet. They come from Chill, from Manchester, wherever they are. The last thing they want to hear is blaring music coming out of a hot tub. Now, I think it was a bit indigent of the planning officer not to show the speakers. I would really respect this committee if they went out, heard the noise that comes from the speakers, in the respect of this is a quiet site
Charles.
with no amenities.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much.
Members,
Oh, sorry.
points of clarity. Can we stick to the planning application, please? Yeah.
It's just more because I've got you. So I'm looking just to see. I thought you were a neighbour at first, but is it Chuck Dixon? I take it. Is it Chuck Dixon? Is that yourself?
Yeah,
as in
that's
charge?
what they call me,
And
yes,
you
aye.
live away? Are you just representing
No,
the people
no.
on
I
site, or-
own one of the lodges. My position was I taught in Sunderland for 25 years, and that was a holiday place. The reason that I'm the only objector here is physically I'm the only person who can come, because all the other people live in Newcastle, Sunderland, Manchester, whatever, and therefore they're individually owned. There's no overall control of the site. And that's one of the problems, is that there's nobody there to control the noise levels.
So just are you there full time or part time?
No,
Part time is what you're
we're
saying.
just
You're
there.
on
We're
occasion.
just there part time, yes,
Okay.
and we have.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Yeah.
Right. Ivor, can I see, as I say, try to keep planning matters.
My house backs onto a next door neighbour who has a hot tub in his garden. He doesn't have the speakers, but you actually get the sound from the next door garden where you have radios and hi-fi players. Is it the fact that you have done anything under the antisocial behaviour? Because the actual tub isn't a problem, it seems to be the speakers. Now, whether the speakers are there or whether it was something else, the report highlights that it could be a radio. So how do you justify
Yes.
going against a hot tub when it's not that problem?
Yes, I'm agreeing with you. A radio is an internal. Yes, it can come outside, but these speakers are permanently outside. They are for outside use, they're not a mixed use. Yes, you can take a radio outside, I agree with you. But if I was coming on holiday and having to listen to that on a site with no amenities, right? Also, what happens is...
Could we stick to the plan? That's not a
Yes,
planning.
well,
that's
the
not a
other
planning
thing
issue.
is that if we go to planning, Mr. McKinnon's also tried to buy the other 5 plots. Okay, which is
You've
a
answered them, actually. Any more questions on plan issues with the hot tub? Right, thanks. Mr. McKinnon.
Okay.
Could we have Nigel McKinnon here, the applicant, please? Right, Mr. McKinnon, you've got 3 minutes. I'll let you know 30 seconds to go.
I came here today just really to give you positive input I've had from guests from Dumfries, just come at Dumfries and Galloway, enjoying their area. I'm so enthusiastic about Dumfries and Galloway. It's just a beautiful place. I'm a mountain biker, walker. The increase in tourism in Dumfries and Galloway, it's on the up. It's on the news the other day. I feel I contribute to that. I'm kind of disturbed now actually after hearing them comments, so it's all that. It's not true. But anyway, I'm here today just to promote it. Put the hot tub in just for ourselves, for our own family to enjoy, but I've also realised that there's a demand for it in the tourist industry. All our guests come here for peace and quiet. All the comments, I could be here all day. No, I could spend today and tomorrow with comments, positive comments for the hot tub and the peace and quiet. They lie there at night, gaze into the stars. Dumfries and Galloway is renowned for that, looking at the stars. Clear skies, dark skies, beautiful. So, regards to the comment for the music, I wasn't going to mention that, but the speakers are there, yes. It was bought with an internal system, disconnected. Doesn't work. You're welcome to go right this minute and press the button, nothing happens. It's disconnected. The guests know this. Know if there's music being played, it's because of buying their own, if maybe an iPod or something. I walked through the site on my own, heard music, dogs barking. It annoys me. But it's holiday homes. That's all they are. It's a holiday park. The committee granted approval for it for this reason, to bring in tourists. And we're doing a good job of it. I feel I'm doing a good job of it, and I'm very proud of that. Really proud of it. Bringing people into this area. It's so good to hear people saying, oh, I want to turn left at Gretna. Is that no brilliant? It is. And turn right at Moffat for that fact. So I just hope you take it into account for the income, for the all local businesses, Lochafer especially, really busy from my lodges. Just think about them, keep it going. Basically, that's it. Thank you.
Right, thanks, Nigel. Member? Yeah.
Just Nigel, just in regards to confirmation, you said the speakers are disconnected.
Correct.
And in regards to noise pollution, you could say, have you ever had any complaints before in the past? Because it sounds like you have to, but have
I've
you?
had, there's number 20 is under development, not completed. It has been for 3 years now. Quite a nuisance actually. But anyway, Mr. Frame has commented to me about the noise. So I've put this to good use. and made sure that there's no way people can play music from the hot tub. There's no way. People come now and don't even know it's there. It pops up from the corner. You've got to push a button to come out. It won't work. There's no music. If there's music there, they're bringing their own. There's nobody can control that in the site. The site is so peaceful. Mr. Dixon there commented on that. I do know that, and I try and applaud that. But it's not because of me. Not because of the hot tub. The hot tub is not noisy. I've not got any decent neighbours really, because I own the ones either side. So.
Okay, thanks for that. Thanks for that clarification, Chairman.
Jim?
Mr. McKinnon, you've said that the speakers don't work.
Yep.
Have you any plans to remove the speakers?
I can do. I can take them out and just leave the casing on the front. I can remove them, no problem.
Do you have plans to do so?
I will say yes to that. I will remove them this weekend and Saturday and a change of the day.
But that is completely voluntary.
I will do
That'll
it.
be down to you.
I will do it. I say I'll do something, I'll do something.
Right. Anyone else? Ian?
Just ask a question on that. Is that an appropriate condition?
No. Excuse me, committee. I just want to say I'm willing to do anything to make the other owners happy.
Fine. No other questions? No further questions? Thank you, Nigel. Members, we're now in session.
Move recommendation. Yeah, move recommendation.
Agreed. Gillian?
Thank you, Chair. Just to confirm that this application has been approved unconditionally as detailed in the report. Thank you.
Sorry. Can we go to item 8 on the agenda? Lethans Wind Farm, 5 kilometres northeast of New Cumnock, 15/C/2/0009. And we've got Mary Duff taking us through this one. Thanks, Mary.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, this is an application which has been submitted to the Scottish Government Energy Consent Unit under the Electricity Act for a wind farm which is 104 megawatts, so it's above the 50 megawatt threshold. It lies entirely within the East Ayrshire Council area, but this council has been consulted as a neighbouring authority. The main difference with that is that if this council is to object to the application, then that won't automatically trigger a PLI, whereas if East Ayrshire objects, then that will automatically trigger a PLI. Moving on to some slides. The application site, and you can see where it lies in relation to the Peace and Galloway area. It is right on the boundary. The application is for the erection of 26 wind turbines, and the boundary where it lies is also the highest point of a ridge, including the Lethen Ridge, which runs roughly south, west, north, east. Shows the layout of the turbines. There is a difference in turbine heights. The blue dots show the turbines where they're 136 metres high, and the red dots are the turbines which are 152 metres high. So there are 12 136 metre high turbines which will be mainly located along the ridge line, the highest point, the highest crest of the ridge, bounding onto the Galloway. And there are 14 of the 152 metre turbines which are further down to the other side and more into the East Ayrshire in general. This plan shows the spread of visibility of the turbines. The application site is up to the top left-hand corner of the map there, and you can see that there is quite a spread of visibility within Upper Niston, including the quite long stretches of the A76, the Valley Side, Connell, Sanker, and Valley Sides, which include historical sites and footpaths. This suppose the cumulative situation as when the application was submitted. The main concern cumulatively is with the application in combination with Deer Hill Wind Farm, which is it's number one on that plan, because it is in such close proximity and at a pinch point in the valley. There is also a difference in the height of the turbines, which cause some visual discordance. You can also see that this wind farm would actually spread the visibility into the other side of the valley, whereas the development in Upper Nisfield is mainly contained to the southern or southwestern side of the valley. Into some of the visualisations. Unfortunately, they're not coming out very well. Difficult to see because of the clouds that are in the background. There's very good contrast. But they are spread along the ridge line here. You might be able to see them better in the wire line. But this is taken from a point on A76, which is about 2 kilometres from the site. It's just as you're getting up towards the East Ayrshire boundary, and you're in fairly close proximity to the site. There's another view which is further down valley, Muckloch there, and the turbines at almost full height on the ridge line. This view from Connell Church, which is it's less than 2 kilometres from the application site, and our concern is with 6 of the most prominent turbines, which again it's hard to see on this photograph because of the clouds and the contrast. But they would be over dominating on this site, which is of certainly a historical landmark in the area. There is also a trail which goes to sites and onwards onto Singland. Part of the quality of this site is the feeling of remoteness, and that was part of its reason for its location at that point. And it's considered that the turbines would impinge and be detrimental to that feeling, given that the surrounding landscape is important to the feeling atmosphere. There's another view, an officer photograph with the chapel, former church, and miners here. It is well looked after, and it is, I understand, quite a valued part of the area. From Liberty Moor, which is opposite side of the valley, and again, turbines very well. You can see it better in the wireframe image. But part of our concern is that the turbines would be spread onto this undeveloped skyline. Codwell Hill, which is on the side of the valley, and you can see the fairly distinctive ridge there. And Cossington Hill, quite a landmark hill, the head of the valley. Wing Hill, which is on the southern upland. And this further away, it again is showing the spread of under the in conclusion, we are recommending that the council objects to this application, and there are 6 main grounds for objection, which include the visual impact on Upper Nithsdale, and the introduction of the turbines into the undeveloped area and a space which is important in maintaining a coherent pattern of wind farm development. Also, the significant cumulative impact in combination with Deer Hill. Also, the impact on St Connell's Church in terms of its archaeological value and its value within the land. Thank you.
Thanks, Barry. Members? Can we get the curtains opened again, please? You got your Jim. Jim?
I have a couple, Barry. I don't know where St Connell's Chapel is in 424, unless it's meant to be St Connell's Old Church. Because St Connell's Chapel sits in Connell Main Street.
No, it's the old church. It's very
Right.
old.
And I take it then the monument you're talking about, is that cairn in the courtyard you're talking about?
Yeah, there's a miner's cairn, which I understand. That's the one just
Yes,
beyond it. That was built, I think it was about the early 20 something. When this was actually being.
There's also St Connell's Cross up to the right up there. But my question really for you is, how long ago was that photograph taken? Because there are 2 turbines, 100 years for that kirkyard now, and the council partly owns them.
Right, well, it could have been taken a while ago. It was the archaeological officer that took the photographs, so it's one that's.
But I just think that maybe changed the complexion a bit, Barry, that's all, because there are already turbines in that area now, and they're part of the Glenmark Lock site, and members will remember that, because not awful long ago that particular approval was made.
Patsy?
Just, we're going to, the recommendation is to raise an objection. Does that go to East Ayrshire? Do they know what we feel about this if we agree this? Or do you not have any communication with them or contact? Or do they come to us and ask?
Barry?
Well, the consultation comes from government, but yes, we will that, and they may or may not whatever. But yeah,
Andy?
Thanks, John. Just for clarification, through you, Jim, did you say there are turbines closer to that old site that are partly owned by this council? Is that the case?
That's the case. Well, partly owned. It's a relationship we have with other parties.
There were 2 turbines which DGC wasn't the applicant for. It was through Buccleuch Estates and Hargreaves as the joint owner of the land up there. From memory, these turbines were about 30, 40 metres tip height, whereas the ones that we're looking at there are 130 to 150 metres tip heights. The context is quite different. The 2 are set much further down. They're certainly not on the hill ridge. So yes, there are the 2 smaller turbines, but they are of a very different nature to the ones which you probably couldn't see, unfortunately, on the slides there, but the EIA makes it far clearer.
Jane?
Sorry, Andy. Yeah, I'm aware, David, there's a difference in height, but there's a significant distance as well in impact. And I'm actually saying hypocrisy is the wrong word here. We've got something there. I think that's kind of what Jim's, I know what word in Jim's mouth here, but if there is already something that's between us and there, to use this as a reason, this new development to me smacks a wee bit, not in my backyard almost.
If I can come in here, in fairness to planning officers, there was an application for 27 or something. It's like a Connell, and their recommendation was the same to refuse because of the same thing. I'm only saying there is a change in complexion now because there are 2 turbines very close to that.
No, this is only to raise an objection. This is only to raise an objection. I know. Alistair?
Well, again, for the avoidance of doubt, Chair, my question is to Mr. Sutty. What we're really saying in the back of it would be that, notwithstanding what's been said, notwithstanding his response, I take it an exercise of Mr. Sutty's professional opinion that this ground of objection and cultural heritage is still valid and sustainable.
Yes, indeed, because of the scale of the proposal in relation to this development.
Grateful, Chair.
Sorry about that, Jane. Jane?
That's all right, Chairman. I feel quite benign. The difference between the difference between 90 feet and 500 feet is quite substantial. I think we've got to consider that when we're thinking about the differences in the two sets of turbines. But would you mind very much if we could go back to the cumulative map? We looked at it very quickly, and I would be I didn't get my head round what was in scope and what was actually consented.
Chair, if I can help, the pink ones are the ones in scoping, and then the red is the ones which are operational under construction. The approval is hard to tell the difference between the different reds, unfortunately. Yellow is application submitted or under appeal. The centre is obviously the black dot, and then you can see the line of the boundary between East Ayrshire and Dumfries and Galloway. So that the nearest ones to those within D&G on that side of the valley, you can see is the yellow one just along from it, which is not quite sure what that one would be. Is it Spango?
Okay, any? Ian?
Just a quick one, Chairman, in regards to it. I think my calculation is it shows the 4 megawatt turbines used to be in around about 2. Would you want to know the difference in size? Are they much bulkier, the same size? How is that? What does it look like in scale?
I mean, certainly I can't really comment about the type of the turbine itself. I don't think we've actually got a slide there to demonstrate what they're like. But the tip height, where you're talking about 150 metres, that is higher than any which have been approved within Dumfries and Galloway. The highest ones I'm aware of are around about 125 to 130 metres tip height. So these are considerably larger turbines than we've seen around here.
Stephen?
Thank you, Chair. I'm a wee bit uncomfortable with reason 2 for the objection on page 52. I think it's the assumptions that underlie the phrase "a space which is strategic in maintaining a coherent pattern of wind farm development with the emerging cluster." Now, as soon as you start talking about coherent patterns, it suggests almost a predetermination, because the pattern is something that's predictable. And I would rather feel that we consider each application on its merits. Strategic gaps in emerging patterns, I just feel I don't think it's a very strong reason, and it suggests, I don't think it actually sits with the values of determining applications on their merits, because it suggests that there's actually a providence, if you like, in terms of how things fit into a preconceived pattern. So that would be my comment on that one.
David?
I think this is a useful slide actually to demonstrate the views of the landscape architect in that you can see that the meandering line that runs up is the A76, which is the main road. What is quite clear is the focus of development has really been on the southern side of the valley, to the south side of the A76. And that's where there's been a cluster. Now, there's also then a further cluster where you get into Clyde and some of the other ones in South Lanarkshire and East Ayrshire. To the north of that, this would effectively be plugging a gap on that side of the valley that currently hasn't been taken. So it's not really predetermining it. It's looking at the realities of where there are already proposals or existing wind farms and saying that if you actually put another one in here, you're really going to lead to an existing gap being blocked up. So I can see exactly what the landscape architect was saying, and certainly I'm comfortable with retaining it, but if members obviously aren't comfortable, then it's open to them to strike that as a reason.
Ewan?
Yeah, I can I see that in terms of the way it's illustrated there, but I think that point 4, you know, if you're talking about, you know, effectively a wind farm landscape, and even point 3, significant cumulative visual impact, etc. I don't really think, I think they're more specific in addressing that in a sort of material sense, whereas number 2 is a bit nebulous, really. And I think, if anything, when you talk about coherent patterns, it suggests, as I say, these are the places where it can and can't go, rather than considering on its merits.
You don't take advice, Joe? Stephen, sorry about that, Stephen. You might continue. Dennis?
No, I'm just glad that didn't emanate from a hot tub or something like that.
Any other member? They agree with the recommendations? Put an objection? That's fine.
Thank you, Chair. Just to confirm that the committee has decided to raise objection as detailed in the report.
We go to item 9 on the agenda, the extension to Macarmore Cemetery formation of access and car parking for 12 cars at between U249 and New Galloway Road, Newton Stewart. Reference number 15/B/1/0003. We've got Bill Murray speaking on this one. Right, Bill?
Thank you, Chair. This is an application by the Council for an extension to Macarmore Cemetery, which is located, as you see there, just to the southeast of Minnegaff, which is part of Newton Stewart. The green road there is the A75. The yellow one is the B7079, known as New Galloway Road. And there is the small, that's an aerial view, the small road to the south is the unclassified road. This is the view of the cemetery as existing, as approached from the town. You'll see it's just in the fork between the two roads, the unclassified road to the right and the B7079 New Galloway Road to the left. This is the main road, the B7079. And that's a view looking back over the existing cemetery. Existing hedge boundary on the left in that view is to be retained with the cemetery extension in the area shown in this slide, with another hedge to form a corresponding boundary, probably just about on the left edge of that image. Again, that's a view showing what it will be like. There will be the existing cemetery on the right, existing hedge retained, and then a new extension on the left of that. Existing boundary dikes are to be retained, so the only new boundary will be the new hedge separating the cemetery extension off from that field. So that's a view over the actual application site from the unclassified road, the 249W. That's a view looking back in another direction towards, over the site, towards the existing cemetery. That's a view of the existing frontage on the U249. Again, that's a closer view. Just to say, in that view, there is existing parking for the existing cemetery. It tends to be parallel to the road. No specific parking was provided when that first cemetery was formed. In terms of the new proposal, advice was that more formal parking arrangements, end-on parking arrangements, should be applied. So therefore, as you look back in that view, you'll see, well, there's actually a van sitting there. That's the characteristics of the parking as existing. For the new extension, the dike you see in the right there, which is the dike to the field, will be taken down and set back to the right into the site to facilitate 12 end-on parking spaces. So there will be a step in the boundary dike there. You can just see the hedge over the top of the dike. That's the existing boundary. From there back towards the viewpoint, that dike, as I say, will be taken down, set back and rebuilt to provide the parking. That's the location plan as submitted. That is the general arrangement. Boundary details. As proposed, it was to be a monoculture beech hedge. Advice is that we consider it would be more appropriate to have a mixed species hedge, so therefore we've applied a condition requiring that to be agreed. That's just a closer view to show how the dike would be set back, as I've just explained. The dark line there would be the setback dike to provide 12 end-on parking spaces off the U249 and a new access into the cemetery extension. So the recommendation is to approve subject to conditions.
Members? Agreed? No, sorry. Steve.
Yeah, thank you. It's just in relation to the directive on the 4.5, page 57, Great Crested Newt. It was acknowledged that there was a low impact nature of, or possible impact on the works. So should that directive be attached to any permission, because it isn't in the listed conditions?
Really?
No, I don't think it would be appropriate to set that as a condition. Just as a bit of background, there is a Great Crested Newt consultation and protection zone that covers the whole of Newton Stewart. It actually stems from the 1970s when a local biology teacher took 2 Great Crested Newts to Douglas Stewart High School and subsequently released them at Blairmount Pond. Since the mid-70s, no Great Crested Newt has ever been observed in Newton Stewart. Advice and discussions from SNH is that they actually agree that that constraint should be removed. So there's virtually zero chance of seeing a Great Crested Newt. So therefore it's a precautionary directive, and I don't think there's any necessity or indeed would it be appropriate to apply a condition.
Thanks, Billy. David?
Just to clarify, we don't include either the reasons for conditions or directives in committee reports, just to keep them shorter, but if members really want to see them, we can put them in.
Members agreed? David's got something. David? Oh, sorry.
Just to confirm, item 9 has been approved subject to conditions as detailed in the report. Thank you.
David?
Just a very short comment, just to let members know, if you hadn't already picked up on it in the media. Unfortunately, just after the agenda had gone off to the printers, the Barcloy Wind Farm appeal decision came out. This is one near Kirkcudbright for 5 turbines. You might remember it had about 500 objections, 200 letters of support. It was refused at the committee in July 2014. Well, the appeal decision came out on the 9th of July, and you may be aware the reporter dismissed the appeal and refused planning permission. I'll bring a report to the August committee in the normal manner, but I thought I'd just update you now.
Thanks, David. And as we're going to recess, I hope everybody has a happy time. Can I just say, there seem to be a wee bit of confusion with some of the members on planning about the delegated powers and that in the paper and that the weekend on certain applications. So if there's any member during the recess that needs a wee refresh, I'm sure David's quite happy to do that. And I thank you for your attendance today.